The nature of reality and the mysteries of life are far beyond anything the mind can grasp. Our rationality and logic are a product of this physical world. But truth, however, lies beyond this material reality. So any effort we make with our minds, no matter how intelligent or sophisticated, is never going to draw absolute, definitive conclusions about what lies beyond this reality. So if that is the case, then what is the use in even bothering? Surely any effort we make is just a useless exercise in building ideas and concepts which are at best just assumptions, or at worst, completely false. The thing to realise is that ideas are the most powerful things we have. They decide who we elect, they decide our morals and what is worth fighting for. The philosophy we adopt creates our perspective, and this then formulates our principles and behaviour. Philosophy will also inevitably dictate how we walk our spiritual path. Although the mind cannot understand God, so long as we have a mind, we need to feed it with the right ideas and beliefs to take us where we want to go. It is for this reason all great traditions in Hinduism have woven into them different philosophies which are attempts to crystallize the most profound, inexplicable truth for the mind to grab onto. Each philosophy is specifically designed to create a pathway through which the mind can be guided to a higher realm of thinking. When our thoughts are raised to this level, we are placed in a ripe state for true spiritual experience. The different masters have understood that without philosophy and this attempt to explain the truth, it is difficult to go deep and enter that core space inside us. Instead, we will conjure up our own ungrounded ideas drawn from our ego. We will make up vain fantasies that suit our needs. Such ideas are subject to change according to our personal preferences, and so will limit our spiritual growth. When we become part of a tradition, however, we are giving up our own personal narrative, which has largely been drawn from society's culture, and instead we are taking up the narrative which has been composed and practiced by the great spiritual masters, masters who have declared their first-hand experience of the divine. Within traditional Hindu philosophy, there are classically 6 main darshanas, or ways of seeing reality. Each of them have been conceived by great rishis and have vast bodies of writings behind them. But perhaps the most prominent philosophy, which has come to define many of the traditions within Hinduism, is Vedanta. Vedanta literally means the end or conclusion of the Vedas. In Vedanta, there is the understanding that if we want to know the nature of truth, there are different ways in which we can gain knowledge to make certain conclusions. For example, there is direct perception. By using our senses, we can perceive what is right in front of us. You know Dharma Speaks has made a video about Hindu philosophy because you are watching it. Another way is inference. Because we have experienced many things in the world, we are able to infer and use logic to draw certain conclusions. If we see smoke on a mountain, then we can infer that there must be a fire, because in the past, whenever we have seen smoke, it has always come from some source of heat or fire. Finally, there is testimony. There are some things we cannot know by ourselves, but if we receive information from a reliable, unbiased source, then we can also draw conclusions from this. The statements of divine personalities and rishis who had the revelation of the Vedic scriptures are seen to be the valid, reliable testimony of truth. The Vedas contain supreme knowledge of that which lies outside of all material and sensory experience. This knowledge is specifically found in the principal Vedic Upanishad texts, as well as other scriptures such as the Brahma Sutras composed by sage Vyasa, and indeed the Bhagavad Gita spoken by Lord Krishna. These scriptures make profound statements describing our relationship with the divine, such as Aham Brahmasmi, I am God, Tattvamasi, you are that, and Sarvam Karavidam Brahma, all of this is God. Using direct perception and inferred logic, an interpretation is drawn from the various statements of the revealed scriptures to build a picture of what the ultimate reality looks like. As we shall see, there are a number of interpretations of what the Vedic statements mean, and as a result, there are a number of different conclusions. In Hinduism, the supreme truth is like a diamond with innumerable facets. Different masters have contacted these different facets and put together descriptions. Such descriptions build a narrative for the mind to be guided to the same experience they have had. So, let us look at the 3 main schools of Vedanta. One of the earliest that became the most famous is Advaita Vedanta, which was consolidated and preached by Shankaracharya in the 8th century. Through his interpretation of the sacred texts, Shankara states that ultimately speaking, there is only Brahman or God, and there is nothing else that exists apart from Brahman. But obviously when we look around, we see infinite difference. There is endless separation into things and living beings. So how can anyone say there is only Brahman or God? Shankara responds that the differences we perceive have a certain reality from a limited level of consciousness. But once we realize the truth, we find there is absolutely no difference. The multiplicity we originally took to be real was ultimately an illusion. Just like in a dream, we can experience so many things. Upon awakening, we realize that all the things we experienced were false. So too, this diversity we perceive around us is also false. Shankara uses the example of the snake rope. When we enter a dark room, we can see something on the floor and we think it is a snake. We can experience all manner of emotions such as anxiety and fear. But when the lights are turned on, we find that it was just a rope. The perception of the snake was false all along. This false perception is brought about by a potency known as Maya. Maya hides the true nature of Brahman and convinces us that the one appears as the many. But through earnest contemplation and introspection, one can eventually realize the enlightened state where the veil of Maya is removed and truth dawns. The truth being that you are fully Brahman or God, not you as the ego or mind, but as the Atma. There is literally nothing else that exists apart from you. Tattvamasi, you are God. The statements such as Tattvamasi mean you are the complete totality of God. The idea of difference and your individuality collapses when faced with the truth. For Shankara, Brahman is beyond anything material. It is not a personality that responds to prayers. It transcends any known qualities. In fact, we cannot even speak of it in any meaningful way. The impact of this philosophy was widespread, but this idea of the world being an illusion and we being the full impersonal God was against the principles of all the devotional traditions in India. These traditions were focused on attaining a state of supreme divine love for God. Such a relationship requires two, the lover and the beloved. But in Shankara's philosophy, such a relationship would ultimately be judged as false, since there is only one entity and everything else is an illusion. Unlike those who follow Advaita Vedanta, a devotee seeks to become the humble servant of God. His foundational belief is that the Supreme is personal. He does respond to prayers, he does intercede and deliver grace. It is because of this that in the 11th century, a great master and philosopher known as Ramanuja proposed a very different interpretation of the Vedic scriptures. While for Shankara the ultimate vision of God was as something beyond description and devoid of any qualities, for Ramanuja, God's supreme status was defined by one who possesses innumerable auspicious qualities in infinite capacity. He states that while God's innate nature was unfathomable, he could still be known and related to through his attributes. Brahman, who he referred to as Narayana, was the source of all sacred qualities such as power, omniscience and splendour. Ramanuja agreed with Shankara that according to the Veda, nothing else exists apart from Brahman or God. But instead of saying that all the diversity we see is an illusion, he stated that all the different things that exist are parts of this one whole that is God. He argued that the things of the world were not an illusion, but completely real attributes of the Lord. The identity we carry as individuals is also not an illusion. Our individuality as the soul is eternal, and our soul will always be part of the Supreme, but never the totality. Drawing on various scriptural references, Ramanuja uses the example of the body and soul. Just as the body and soul together make up one person, God is also one but divided into his transcendent essence and the body which is made up of his individual souls and the physical world. Just as the body is utterly dependent on the soul, so too the world and all the individual souls are completely dependent on God. Whereas Shankara states that we are all ultimately exactly the same as God, Ramanuja rejects that and states that we are all individual souls which are an eternal, infinitesimal part of the Lord. For Ramanuja, the statement Tattvamasi, you are that, means that there is an underlying real unity between you and God, but still the you and the that are always distinct. Even in the ultimate state, there is no loss of identity. Like the drop in the ocean, our Atma or self shares divine qualities with the Supreme, but in no way resembles the totality of God. The term Maya for Ramanuja describes how we as individuals are bound to this material world and have forgotten our true relationship with the Lord. We have forgotten that we are a servant that is eternally part of Him. He explains that this bondage to the world which we experience life after life can be broken through perfect loving devotion, or indeed through grace. By abandoning the ego and expressing a state of complete surrender, we invite the mercy of God to free us and return us back to our original and ultimate state of a loving relationship with Him. This philosophy of Ramanuja, based on the Vedas, is known as Vishishta Advaita Vedanta, which can be translated as overall oneness, qualified by differences and parts within it. Around the 13th century, there came another great master known as Madhvacharya. He too was a devotee who sought to preach a loving relationship with God. The Advaita or non-dual philosophy of Shankara ran in direct contradiction to his vision of the Supreme Person. For Madhva, even Ramanuja did not go far enough from Shankara's stance. The notion that we could in any way be one or even a part of God was seen as completely erroneous. God was far too exalted, far too glorious for us to share our nature with Him. It is for this reason that Madhva proposed Dvaita Vedanta, where he formulated an interpretation of the Vedas which concluded, like Ramanuja, that God was personal and had a form. But unlike Ramanuja, he stated that absolute difference exists at every level. God is eternally different from this material world. He is also different from the individual souls. Each individual soul is different from one another, and these individual souls are also different from the material world. And finally, the various material objects in this world are all different and separate from each other. In other words, the differences we perceive are exactly as we see them. Having said that, despite all these differences at every level, everything is dependent on God, not because they are part of Him, like Ramanuja stated, but because it is the Lord's power which sustains them. When Madhva looked at the Vedic scriptures, using specific rules of Sanskrit grammar, he interprets statements very differently. Tattvamasi becomes Atattvamasi, which means you are not that. In this way, Madhva honours his Dvaita philosophy by establishing complete difference. There are other forms of Vedanta, but these three, Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, and Dvaita, highlight the main philosophical understandings. Throughout the centuries, there has been much discussion and intense debate between the different schools, with various points and counterpoints being raised. This has largely been done to retain the integrity of the traditions that have grown up around these different philosophies. But still, one can legitimately ask, why are they so different? If these individuals really did know God, why do they draw such radically different conclusions? The thing to understand is when we are delivering the deepest truths in words, inevitably we will fail to capture the whole picture. Take light for example. If we are asked to explain it, how would we respond? Is it a wave or is it a particle? The answer depends on how we measure it, because in fact it is both at the same time. The moment we draw one conclusion over another, we fall short of the overall reality. Shankara's Advaita Vedanta can be likened to saying you are the continuous wave. Madhva's Dvaita can be compared to light as separate particles, with definitive, clear differences between them. While Ramanuja's Vishishta Advaita would be more like a wave particle, where there is oneness but with some distinction. Light is light and truth is truth, but it depends on how we approach it. Ekam sat vipraha bahuda vedanti. The truth is one, but the wise speak of it in many ways. This is why Sanatana Dharma as a spiritual tradition is so sophisticated and mature. Each of these descriptions of Vedanta provides a framework to guide the mind and allow it to reach a certain realization. There are some who find a resonance with the idea that we can reach complete oneness with an impersonal reality through inquiry and contemplation. On the other hand, There are those who hold that the world and all the diversity we see is exactly as we experience it. There is no unity with God, but we are still utterly dependent on Him. And then there are those who see that this relationship with God is deeply intimate. They feel that we and everyone else are individuals, but are still actually a part of Him. The Masters have formulated different visions of God to guide seekers, to give them an understanding through which they may experience the same truth they have, a truth which is actually beyond any philosophy the mind can conceive of. Many thanks for listening.